The Padres Hot Tub annual membership drive is almost done. On Tuesday, trade deadline day, we're going to wrap it up. And all we're trying to do is invite people who already support the show or have been thinking about supporting the show to become annual members of Padres Hot Tub. All you have to do is go to patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub, patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub. And if you sign up to become an annual member, which gets you 2 months free, by the way, it's 12 months for a 10-month price. On top of that amazing discount, if you join as an annual big or huge patron, we'll send you for free a Waldron Cauldron t-shirt. That's on top of all the other great perks and bonuses and benefits that you get for being a patron of Padres Hot Tub. So check it out, guys. Patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub. You got a couple more days to become an annual member and get the free Waldron Cauldron t-shirt. Padres Hot Tub. Craig Elsten, Chris Reed, Raphie Cantor, celebrating a 7-2 road trip for the San Diego Padres, discussing the first Preller deadline, big move of 2024, acquiring reliever Jason Adam from the Tampa Bay Rays for a whole lot, and looking ahead because, as Raphie said before we hit record, the shelf life of this podcast is almost certain to be short as we approach Tuesday's 3 p.m. West Coast time, Major League Baseball trade deadline, and further things happening, both potentially for the Padres and certainly for Padre rivals heading toward the deadline. Gentlemen, good afternoon to you. We record this, probably important to timestamp it, Sunday at 3 o'clock, because God only knows what might happen Sunday at 6 o'clock or something like that. But first things first, how y'all doing?
Doing fantastic. What a great week for the Padres.
Yeah. I will say a week and a half ago, Chris and I did a group therapy, sans Craig, where we were asked our predictions and for the upcoming stretch that included this road trip and the next 2 games against the Dodgers. And we both agreed on 7-4, which I was, I thought that was pretty optimistic at the time. And I will say, as a somewhat, I have a summer home in Doomerville and I have a summer home in Bloomerville. I keep 2 homes on the Discord. I'm really just trying to avoid Discord tax law is really what it's about. But I will say, at my summer chateau in Doomerville, they were laughing at us. They were laughing at us. And when we lost that first game on the Friday in Cleveland, they were really laughing at us. And who's laughing now? Let's fucking go. At least 7-4, at least, if not more.
Yeah, now we're kind of doomers at 7-4.
You guys are both picking a sweep from the Dodgers, you jerks.
Yeah. What a bunch of haters.
No haters in Houston. It's okay.
I teed the T.
That's fine. So the Padres won 7 in a row, and doggone it if they almost won 8 in a row.
Yeah.
To cap the best road trip. It would have been the best road trip in Padres history if they won 8-1. Today, again, we're recording this on Sunday. The Randy Vasquez slipper finally fell off. He had been living so well. And of all the teams, almost all the teams in baseball, the Orioles with their super platoon, super deep, versatile team, can start all lefties and switch hitters if they want. They just lined up, I think, 7 left-handed bats against Randy Vasquez today. And to his credit, Vasquez made it one time through the lineup and did his mix and match, slice and dice, mix master general. He did it very well the first time through the order. The second time through, they got him. They nicked him. Enyel De Los Santos came in. He didn't give up a homer, so it wasn't the predictable result, but he did let all his inherited runners score. Padres down 6-0, and my goodness, 6-0 became 6-5. And it was the Padres' top relievers, or a couple of them, Estrada and Morejon, with a huge help of a Higashioka catcher's interference. That gave up 2 runs in the bottom of the 8th and turned 6-5 to 8-5. And yes, that became critical when the Padres got a run in the top of the 9th inning. But because they couldn't play for just one or play for more, Yenier Cano was able to finally close things down. But boy, Padres just really firing on so many proper cylinders right now, guys. I mean, the offense came out of a quiet stretch. It seems to be clicking at a higher level over the course of the whole road trip. The pitching, of course, has been just outstanding.
Yeah. I think you have to use really nice words when there's a no-hitter on the road trip.
I mean, really. So you gave up 7 in the first game of the road trip, and you gave up 8 in the last game of the road trip, and you pretty much, I think you gave up 8 like total runs the rest of the road trip.
Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy how good the starting pitching was. When the starting pitching is that good, it allows the bullpen to not appear as leaky as it actually is. And it really flooded us with hope. The last thing I would say is I think the Padres outdefended all the teams they played throughout the road trip, and just played really solid, clean, sometimes outstanding defensive baseball, which really came to play in the Baltimore series because the Orioles kicked it around to cost themselves that series. They really, both Friday and Saturday's games were decided on Baltimore Oriole errors.
Yeah. I mean, I'm assuming that Gunnar Henderson's now going to move to right field because he plays an untenable shortstop. That was my whole thought when I was watching that guy. I was like, I don't remember Tatis being this bad, and Gunnar Henderson was terrible. He made 2 good plays today, but I mean, throwing the ball away, getting eaten up by choppers. I think he gave us like 3 errors over the course of the weekend at least.
He had 2 today, and he should have had 3.
Yeah. So, just echoing a lot of what you said, Craig. Today was the second loss of the road trip, but it was really the first bad start. Mazer kept things somewhat reasonable, and Waldron, who ended up not getting, I guess he got tagged with the loss on in that first start in Cleveland because he left the game up 1-0, or down 1-0. He put up an amazing start. He went 6 innings, 1 run. Really the Padres kind of pissed away what was a fantastic start on his part. And so, Vasquez today, the thing that I thought was interesting was I was expecting that he was going to be exposed by the Orioles, but not in the way that he was. They certainly nicked him, as you said, but he gave up 4 walks. And in quick succession, I thought that the ball was going to be put into the seats. And that's how we were going to see a downfall of Randy Vasquez. And that really didn't happen to the degree that we thought. He kind of, it was more of a self-inflicted wound more than anything. Now you could argue that he didn't want to throw strikes to the lefties he was facing, so that's why he put all those guys on. But I don't think you can feel anything but like real optimism about this team, where they're at right now, how you can hope on them. And putting together a similar stretch in late September or October, this team can go a really, really long way. So I'm just really excited and proud of the way the Padres have been playing the last week and a half.
Baltimore is thought by many, many people to be the best in MLB. Like, they're almost unanimously thought of as the best in the AL. So to have the Padres go in and handle them, it speaks to it's just what they've done all year. They have played really good baseball teams really well. Today, going down 6 in the 3rd, I didn't get to see the first 5 innings because I was playing softball. I was watching the score. I was stunned to see that it was 4 walks that did Randy in. Raphie, exactly like you. I thought, oh man, that's a 3-run shot, and some extra base hit, but no, that wasn't the case. That makes me feel better about the circumstance. I hate to see him only go 2 and maybe ding his confidence because he's been pitching very confidently. But the club is never out. Me and one of our patrons, who plays softball with me, they're never out of it. His exact quote was 6 runs ain't shit. And I think that is the mantra for the club in the dugout when they find themselves in these situations. You can't count them out. They're a fun squad. And, we're playing meaningful baseball now. This is all of this. It isn't playoff intensity, but you can tell they are bringing it every single game. And as long as the pressure keeps dialing up and they keep on performing along with it, I'm stoked.
Well, a guy who is leading the way right now for the San Diego Padres is Xander Bogaerts, who, since he's come back from the injured list, has played like a superstar that you might want to sign to an 11-year contract and have on your team for a long time. It's crazy. It's not crazy. I understand the context of it, but I feel like as San Diegans, we've never been allowed to celebrate Xander Bogaerts being on our team because he showed up on a deal that came off the news that they were trying to sign Trey Turner and they were trying to sign Aaron Judge. And then it felt like Bogaerts was a settle and you didn't know what position he was going to play. And it pushed Kim off short where everyone loved him. And then Bogaerts started out as a house of fire, but then he hit in the middle of the lineup last year, the whole year, and he got like 50 something RBI. He really, really struggled in pressure positions.
Yeah, we
last
became
year.
very familiar with his cortisone schedule, which was unfortunate.
Right. People said that he was just, a bad wrist. He was nothing basically more than a bad wrist. And so he would never be anything more than a bad wrist. And since returning in the last couple of weeks, I'm just looking at his game log. Today he hit a home run and went 1 for 4. Before that, 3 for 5. Before that, 3 for 4. Before that, 1 for 3, 4 for 4, 2 for 4, 2 for 4, 2 for 5, 0 for 4, 2 for 4, 2 for 4. I mean,
that's a guy.
Are you kidding me? This is superstar shit. And he's playing great second base, making wild ass bobbly plays to preserve no hitters. Bogaerts is showing you when you've got superstar level talent and they get hot, they carry you. They carry you and they create wins. And Xander's the offensive carrying force of this 7-2 road trip.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I mean, his bat is the one that, when we were looking at the long-term models constantly versus Xander and Manny, Manny's long-term projectability is so much tied to his bat speed, whereas Xander has this really high floor of contact, bat to ball, the power numbers aren't necessarily going to knock your socks off, but he's always going to post. And that's what makes him so intriguing and why kind of the tail of his career is projected to be stronger than Machado's. And it's really, I take what you're saying a lot, Craig, about this idea of we've never really been able to celebrate him. And I think also part of that comes from the fact that Xander has had really good spurts on this team. And this was the first one that's actually coming at an opportune time. The 2 times where Xander was really good in 2023 was right out of the gate. He had an amazing April where he basically amassed half of his WAR for the season. And then basically didn't do anything for 4 months. And then when the team was out of it in September, then he got hot again. And so if you look at 2023 as a whole, he had a 4-win season, but which is amazing, which is fantastic, but it just didn't feel like it when we were watching it because it was just coming so sporadically. To see him step up now, coming back from injury at a time when he got injured, we were really worried about the impact that it was going to have on the team and its depth. And yeah, second base was maybe a place we could absorb something, and then we got a rise and it was this whole thing. But him coming back in, it is a floor raiser. And that's really what I'm looking for, both as the Padres continue with Xander and also as they go into this deadline. How are they going to raise the floor on the 2024 Padres? And so it's been nothing but fantastic to see him perform.
Yeah, Rafe, I wasn't sure it was like his best stretch as a Padre, but I did feel like it was a really super timely reminder for Padres fans what he can be, because we just haven't seen it consistently. It hasn't been who he is all the time. He's already at 1.3 F4 on the year, and hopefully he can have a second half to push that as close to 2.5, 3 as possible. I mean, I should say a third.
Yes. Also, a week ago on this show, I pointed out that Jurickson Profar had been in a 20-game slump. He sure as hell came out of that during the Washington and Baltimore series.
We were worried about Jackson, too.
Jackson Merrill, the second he got to the Beltway,
That's
and
right.
got in front of his friends and family, just dynamite for 6 games in a row, including a 4-hit game where he came a homer short of the cycle. So really good offensive contributions from key secondary players on this team, and that allows, and Xander's not a secondary player, he's a primary player. Sometimes we think of him as a secondary player. He showed you why he's a primary player on this team over the course of this road trip, and that makes up for Manny just kind of, having a little slump in the middle of the road trip, and 0 for 15 in there, came back, hit a homer in Baltimore. He probably has another hot stretch in him somewhere in the last 57 games of the season, and hopefully that will coincide with another Padres real hot stretch. The thing that really made me the most happy about this weekend, guys, was that they came into it on a 5-game winning streak, and they didn't get swept. I mean, like and that might sound trite or smug or sarcastic, but like for 2 months, they had followed every good stretch with a massive losing streak, including a series sweep. And coming in on the major game against Grayson Rodriguez, and even though it wasn't by a lot, still falling behind, and winning that game, that was gigantic. And of course, Jurickson was the catalyst with a 2-run homer and then another 2-run homer off Craig Kimbrell, maybe chasing Kimbrell off of another team's closing job. Craig Kimbrell, if he ever makes the Hall of Fame, he'll be my least favorite pick ever.
Same.
Because I know that he has racked up a ton of stats. I'm telling you guys, I remember, because we talked on Banter about the Olympics, I remember watching Craig Kimbrell in the Olympics in like 2012 or something and going, I don't know. He doesn't have that clutch closer, eye of the tiger, lock it in, mentality. And gosh, he closed for the Cubs, and the Cubs wouldn't use him as a closer in the playoffs. And then he went to the Phillies, and the Phillies wouldn't use him as a closer in the playoffs. He went to the Dodgers. The Dodgers wouldn't use him as a closer in the playoffs. And now he's with Baltimore. And guess what? They're going to get to the playoffs, and they're not going to use Craig Kimbrell as their closer. Like, he's maybe the most overrated great closer in baseball history.
I think it's got to be the arms that he did, like the bird arm thing that he does. He puffs out before every pitch. That has to be tricking GMs. They're like, completely impervious to the powers of the bird arms.
I once heard his explanation for that, and it was so kind of just off, like all these guys' explanations always are. Like with Paddock and you're looking at 2 lions when you see the tattoo in this. His was just like, it just shows we're there to pitch. Like we're there to pitch. It's like, well, why else would you be there, dude? That doesn't do it.
We're here to do our taxes. Actually. Yeah.
So a 7-2 road trip, and I want to be clear. I never expected this to be a 7-2 road trip. You're playing on the road, the best 2 teams in the American League. You've got Washington in between, a team that, you didn't know if they were going to have some sort of, crazy revenge plot that the baseball gods had drawn up for them. It turned the exact opposite way. Padres sweep the season series.
Yeah.
This is another Padre timed. I'm not going to say well-timed. You can decide for yourself if it's well-timed or not. Padre timed winning streak right before the trade deadline. That creates
They're just doing what they were always going to do at some point.
Creates the ballast Because realistically, and I know I talked about this with you guys before, like if there's one thing that's going to light up the eyes of the Erics, it's guaranteed home playoff dates.
Yeah.
If there's one thing that's going to get them fired up, it's the idea that you've got cash at the end of the rainbow.
You
in
just
terms of
know
playoff
that it was
games.
part of their business plan last year, and then they didn't make it, and the
Correct.
reverberations of everything stacking up on them with that fact.
It was brought up a number of times. So the fact that this coincided very neatly with a Brave 6-game losing streak and with the Cardinals fading off, and now all of a sudden the Padres yesterday were in a virtual tie for the 4th spot. And if it weren't for percentage points, I would be able to say by tiebreaker leading the 4th spot. It does create a matrix of opportunity to think about this team getting better, breaking loose, getting to 10, 12, 13, 14 games over 500. And then, hey, coming into today, the Padres were 5.5 behind the Dodgers. It gets people excited. Of course, now it's 6.5 because they lost and the Dodgers won. I would still caution every single Padre fan that listens to our show, ignore the fucking Dodgers. Don't go there. Just don't go there. If we're going to get there, we'll get there eventually, and we'll all get there together.
Especially ignore River Ryan starts.
Oh, my God. It was in the studio during a break this week that River Ryan was being interviewed on MLB Network, and both Braden and I were like, Matt Beatty. And then, like, Annie didn't even remember. And I was like, no, that was a Padre.
Oh,
that was
that's
a Padre.
Strike,
what?
Annie.
Oh, who was he traded for? Matt Beatty. Like, oh. So this seems like a good transition point, talking about bad Preller trades.
That one wasn't at the deadline, though. That one was before the season even started, wasn't it?
No excuse. I think AJ Preller's done a bang-up job this year for the most part. I've said that a number of times. Because this team is on a hot streak, I understand the idea to think big. And we've known from the beginning that this was going to be a seller's market where the prices were going to be way too high, and that the Padres had already given up most of the stuff that they had to trade this year to get Dylan Cease and to get Luis Ariz. So with that as a backdrop, Jason Adam is now a San Diego Padre. It's not just a trade, as Preller loves to do. It's not just a trade, it's a commitment, because Adam is controlled for 2 years beyond this year. He makes a little under $3 million this year, which means it only puts about $1 million against the Padres' luxury tax hit this season. Nothing of consequence financially. Of course, he'll be arbitration 2 eligible next year. He'll be ARB 3 eligible the year after that. So he will be an increasingly expensive asset for the Padres going forward. And the cost for Adam, who has a rock-solid ERA the last 3 years, has pitched very well this year, has stepped in as a part-time closer in Tampa's bullpen by committee. The cost was the number 3 prospect in the system, Dylan Lesko, along with another first-round pick, Homer Bush. Right? Was he first or was Head first? Second round. Yeah. Okay. Homer Bush. And the 3rd-rated catcher in the system, J.D. Gonzalez. All going for a relief pitcher. I think we all have different thoughts, so I'm curious to hear the thoughts of both of you guys.
Just to that last point, Dylan Head was the first rounder, and he's already gone. So now the Padres don't have their first rounders from 22 or 23. They might not even have their second rounder. That might have been Marcy. So Bush was a second, or no, Marcy was like a 4th. But regardless,
point of fact, Preller has traded 9 of his 10 first-round picks.
That's like, that makes people nervous, and I don't blame you. And here is where I'm looking at from this trade. I see Adam is coming back, and that makes me happy. And that's it. Like, I am looking at the trade as for the 2024 Padres trying to win a championship, trying to put an actual playoff contender together. And our biggest need, we've been saying it for months. I don't mean nice things to have or things you might want in case of injury or death pieces. The need on this team was a power right-handed reliever. Those aren't my words. Those are Craig's. And now we got one. He is consistent. He's solid. He makes the team better instantly. And that's why I'm stoked on it. I can't go too much deeper than that. I understand Dylan Lesko, first round draft pick. They're selling dirt low on a guy with a really, really high ceiling. But, he's not going to be throwing strikes for the Padres anytime soon. Well, I mean, never now. But he wasn't going to be throwing strikes for the Padres anytime soon. They sold low because he's been really bad this year. And it stinks to lose him. It stinks to lose Homer Bush, who might have been a really handy fourth, fifth outfielder that you don't need to worry about who's in your outfield walking into opening day. You're not banking on rookies because you might have this guy around. But those are all nice things to have in the future. And in the now, Padres just got Jason Adam. I've had him on fantasy teams because he is sleepy. Not a lot of people know about him for some reason. I saw a lot of posts. Oh, we traded for somebody I never heard of. Well, you're going to get acquainted with him because he's going to do a lot of rad pitching for the Padres. They needed somebody 6 to 8, 5 to 7 sometimes, depending on who's starting. And we got him. So I'm happy about it. AJ Preller deadline trades. If they don't make you nervous, you haven't been paying attention. Like, if they don't worry you haven't been paying attention. I looked at the Josh Hader trade, for instance. And if you felt happy about the Josh Hader trade and you liked having that guy available in the NLDS, in the wild card series, which they won, then you should think a little bit positively about that. But the flip side of it is the Padres sent Robert Gasser, who is a major league starter already. But he had to have Tommy John, so that's unfortunate. But the talent was there. He's a major league starter. They sent Estuary Ruiz, who got turned into friggin' William Contreras, who might be the best catcher in baseball. So they gave up a lot. Like, that trade, you can make it. I literally Googled Josh Hader, and I got 2 Sports Illustrated articles from this year arguing who won that trade. And they were completely different. That's how these things go. I'm happy the Padres made a move to address their biggest area of need. I feel like they're a much more complete pitching staff now. So I'm for it. I'm stoked on it.
All right. And now, Raphie Cantor.
Let me just start with where I agree with Chris, and then I will go into how I feel about it mostly. What I agree with is that I'm not torn up at all whatsoever about losing Homer Bush Jr. and JD Gonzalez, who are the other 2 players in this trade, for a couple of reasons. The ceiling for Homer Bush was he would be a really good glove first defensive center fielder with no pop. Sorry, we don't really have a need for that. We have our franchise center fielder now. He's locked up. Could a 4th or 5th outfielder, potentially be useful for us? Maybe. Sure, but I don't necessarily, we do have Jose Azocar for that role. Like, I don't know that Homer Bush was projected to be that much better than Jose Azocar. He was going to be faster, but
yeah, it's a great comp.
Like, really, it's that you would be hard pressed to find people who are projecting him higher than Jose Azocar. So that's number 1. Number 2, JD Gonzalez is a 18-year-old catching at Lake Elsinore, and he's not even the second best catching prospect in the system. That's Brandon Valenzuela. And we've mentioned Brandon Valenzuela on the last couple shows, and Brandon Valenzuela's future is backing up Ethan Salas if he stays in the system. And JD Gonzalez was projected below that. So those 2 things I don't really care about. End of where I agree with Chris. I think this is a terrible trade. I think this is deadline Preller vintage striking again, where I always like to think of trades from, if I were on the other side of this trade, how would I feel? And if I were in the Tampa Bay Rays, Swamp Cooler, I don't know what their podcast is called.
Won't be a swamp cooler. Those things don't work in humidity.
Yeah. So something else. I don't know.
Maybe it would. It would be like a hot tub. So you're right.
The manatee ring. I don't know what they call it. Anyway, we're getting off the point.
Manatee hole.
The manatee hole. I would be stoked. I would be absolutely stoked if we got Dylan Lesko back for Jason Adam. AJ Preller has this weird erogenous zone for years of control where like he can sell that to like ownership or the fans where it's like, oh, like we're going to go and we're going to get these guys and we're going to turn prospects into major leaguers who are going to be with us for a really long time. And that's all well and good. But you know what the most volatile year-to-year position is in baseball? Relief pitching.
It's relief pitcher.
Yes. Thank you, Craig. It's relief pitching. And just because a guy has been good for the last couple years with one organization, by the way, it should be said, Jason Adam was in the Padres system, got traded to Kansas City, was in the Royals system, was not good, ends up in Tampa Bay, does well in Tampa Bay on one team, and then now gets traded to the Padres. And it's in return to give up Dylan Lesko, who, first of all, you never sell low on people. That's always a bad investment strategy, is like selling low on things. You don't want to do that. And to give away all of that upside for a guy who, even in Jason Adams' best form, if we get the 90th percentile version of Jason Adam, he's never going to contribute to the team what the upside of Dylan Lesko is ever going to contribute to the Rays. He's just not. So if you're looking at this charitably, this is a not good trade. If you're looking at it in the real world, this is just not a trade that you make. It's just not necessary. When there are rentals who are out there who are going to cost less than what you gave up for 2.5 years of Jason Adam, I really just don't get it.
But are they going to be as good? And everybody values control. That's not an AJ Preller thing. Everybody wants to limit their costs and have a cost control on their roster year to year. It's not an exclusive thing.
But you don't have to go and get a cost-controlled reliever who's going to be on the team from year to year. That's way less valuable than going out and getting Juan Soto, who's going to be under team control for 2.5 years, because you can project Juan Soto. You can't project Jason Adam. He can come here and turn into a fucking pumpkin. Like, it just can happen.
You can predict him as well as any other pitcher, and you can say that same thing about any other deal to be made. And the fact is, the dude's been quite good. Blake Snell only pitched for the Rays. He came over here. They did pretty fine with him, especially after a little while, and they were able to get to know him a little bit.
But they didn't want to pay Blake Snell. Like the Rays are miserly, and they did not want to pay Blake Snell. And I suspect they also didn't want to pay Jason Adam. The difference is that, but we don't have to then, as a favor, toss in literally our best pitching prospect, no matter what his year was.
Like, that's the cost, man. We are at the deadline. We know the prices are high. Like, we know it's going to hurt.
I don't know. Well, Craig, I'm sorry I'm icing you out of this.
No, I appreciated both of your perspectives. And I am going to obnoxiously be the football through the goalposts that you set, because I'll probably come in between you guys along the way. Tactically, I disagree with this trade. I disagree with this trade from the perspective of strategy and tactics, which are possibly out of AJ Preller's control. AJ knows so much more than we do about what the actual dynamics of the deadline are this year. Now, that is not to say that we have to blanket trust him. Okay? I'm not saying that. But I am saying that he has spent, since the draft, so the last week, probably on the phone nonstop, and I would imagine that he knows the prices of things in the market. By that, I mean he knows the price of a rental reliever, and he knows the price of a controllable reliever. I am always going to be on the side of trading for a rental reliever unless it's a closer. Okay? So trading for Josh Hader and getting, another year of control, that was exciting because you knew he was going to come in. He was going to close for the team, and then he was going to close for the team the next year, and that's a critical role on the team. Jason Adam might pitch 25 innings for the Padres this year. He might pitch 25 innings. That's if he keeps his exact usage up from Tampa to here. I would suspect we'll use the shit out of him because we've got a 2-tiered bullpen that just added one player to the top tier. And we saw again today, 2 of the guys in the top tier, you got to ask some questions about. Like, is Estrada fading? Is Morejon fading?
Estrada got used a lot.
I mean, I think Adam is going to be really, really, really important in the next couple of weeks for this team because it feels like he's coming at the exact right time. So, big league level, the team gave up nothing that's going to hurt it to get a player that they really, really need, who is going to step in at the exact right time. That is a way to look at this trade. It's an acceptable way to look at this trade. Tactically, I would have preferred a rental because I know relievers, as Raphie said, I underline, are the most volatile possible thing on the market. There's no guarantee that Jason Adam will be healthy or a good performer in 2025 or 2026. Never mind in both years. So that control could be completely irrelevant if he's hurt or he's a bad performer. And Lesko is someone I feel like you need a starter coming back to trade Dylan Lesko. Because even if you're getting a starter, a starter with a year of control, right? Now we're talking about 50 or 60 innings the rest of this year, another 150, 160 innings next year. Jason Adams not going to pitch 150 innings in his Padres career. Like, that's an absolute guarantee. So on that level, I don't like trading Lesko for something controllable but that volatile and that is going to give you so little, 50 or 60 innings in a season. So on a theoretical level, I disagree with the deal. Now I got to go another level. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm wearing my Fort Wayne Tin Caps shirt today because if you're a Tin Caps fan, first off, bless you. I hope Indiana's not too terrible of a place to live. Your team got better today if you're a Tin Caps fan because a pitcher who was 1-9, walking 8 guys every 9 innings with a ERA over 6.
Man, this is a perspective.
You don't have to watch him anymore. He's gone. Dylan Lesko wasn't just bad this year. He was fucking terrible. He was so bad that scout type people look at it, evaluators look at him and go, oh God, I don't know. But the Rays look at him.
Yeah.
And they look at him. Their Borg assimilation unit looks at him and goes, fewer hits than innings pitched, more strikeouts than innings pitched. He's walking the universe. He's hitting the universe. We'll fix that. We'll put him in the laboratory. We'll strip him down to his requisite parts.
We'll $6 million man him.
100%. We'll tear off all of his muscles from the bone, and we'll reattach only the fastball and the changeup, and we'll elevate him to the big leagues in a year as a reliever, and he'll be an elite reliever for our team. Or we'll have completely fixed him, and he'll come up and he'll be a cost-controlled starter. But they don't care. They've got a whole starting rotation coming off Tommy John in Tampa. From Rasmussen to Baz to Springs. Like, they don't need Lesko to be it, and they don't care. He's just going to be affordable with an elite tool that they either will refine and utilize, or it won't work out for them, and they don't care because it costs them absolutely nothing. You're right that the Tampa Bay Rays, fuckhole podcast would be so happy, Rafe, but they're also living the most miserable goddamn life possible because they're always kind of good, but not quite good enough, and they had their chance in the World Series, and they blew it and wouldn't have counted anyways because it was 2020. But like
Stop.
Randy Arozarena just got traded for stuff
Heartbreaking.
because he's going to be more expensive next year.
It's so
And that
lame.
used to be the way that the Padres lived, was getting things, making smart. Oh, we're so smart. I mean, I remember just me and Ben just jacking each other off over and over. We flipped Jay Watasic for D'Angelo Jimenez. We're the smart. Do you remember that? Like, we're so smart. We're the smartest organization. We're trading fungible things for real things. Like, it doesn't, come on. I'd much rather be the team that's trying to win, and we are trying to win. There's no such thing as a pitching prospect. I really do believe that. I think Snelling's gone. I think he's gone because they're going to try and trade for a starter of some sort. They have to. They have to. I mean, they have to. AJ said some weird thing in his Jason Adams story about we have some internal options we like. Who the actual fuck are you talking about? Major?
Jake Cronenworth. he's
Brito?
very internal.
Brito dead, y'all. Brito dead. Forearm hurts. Ryan Bergert?
Yeah.
Who are we actually talking about? We're not talking about anyone. It's a lie. So I'm sure that'll happen. The farm system's gutted. But we got to keep Salas and DeVries. I'm going to be fine all the way through the next podcast we do, as long as we keep those guys. We trade Snelling. I get it. We're trying to win. We're a good enough team. We might be able to get fourth place. We're trying to win. I get it. I want to win. I want the team to improve itself. We just have to keep those two guys under lock and key. If we trade one of those guys for a fucking starter because he's got 2 years of control, I'm going to lose my mind.
We're going to know a lot more about what AJ was hearing the cost was for other things when Tanner Scott goes. Like, he might be the one reliever that's being rumored as getting dealt that I would have preferred more than Jason Adam. Like, I put Jason Adam right up there with his closer in TV, Peter Fairbanks, who, gosh, what a quote he is. I would have loved him in the clubhouse. But both him and Tanner Scott are on expiring deals. Tanner Scott, I think, is a little bit better than both of them. Let's see what he costs before we say AJ definitely got fleeced.
I mean,
and the only other and last point, sorry, this trade is more an indictment on the Scott Barlow, than anything else. Like,
well, I agree.
What was AJ getting told that he had to cut payroll so much that they unloaded Scott Barlow for Enil De Los Santos? An obvious salary move at the time, a dump, after already giving up prospects for him just the year before. So, like, that, if there's anything to find fault in today's trade and why it had to happen the way it did, I go, that's the one, like, I go, look back there and reassess the process that you made that decision with.
I guess you guys have heard my opinion. I'll just end with this thought. The Padres gave up more for Jason Adam than they gave up for Luis Arias. They did.
Yeah. No, they did.
Like,
I agree.
I can show you the math if you want. Yes, I can show you the math if you want. The Padres traded
Dylan
away
Head's like a 20th.
Okay, so Dylan Head was a 45 future value. Martorella was a 45 future value. Marcy was a 40 plus. Usuko was a 40 and had salary attached to him. The Padres were trading for 1.9 future war. Excuse me, that's what they gave away. They gave away 1.9 future war, which is a value of $13.2 million when you take into account Usuko's salary that was going away. And they were trading for 3.9 future war from Luis Arias coming from Miami. Wow. And that had a raw value, or excuse me, a net value of $11.7 million when you take into account the ARB salaries that he's owed. So the Padres traded 1.9 future war to the Marlins for Luis Arias. And today they are trading, and I wrote it down and I'm pulling it up now, 2.3 future war to the Tampa Bay Rays in return for what is projected over the course of the next 2.5 seasons as 0.7 war that Jason Adam is going to put up, because that's how little the Sabermetrics values relievers because they just can't really make a huge impact on games. They're not putting up a lot of innings, and they have to have really, really good underlying statistics to get super high value on that. So they got to be striking out a lot of guys, not walking a lot of guys, not giving up homers, etc. If you are attracted to the number side of the game like that. And I just think that that's a remarkable statement that for also reminder that Arias has been here 3 months longer than Jason Adam will be, and we're going to have him for, so basically almost 2 full seasons of Luis Arias, and we gave up less for 2.5 years of Jason Adam. So I don't know. This to me reeks of, I'm AJ Preller, and I know that if I don't make the playoffs, I'm getting fired. And so I'm making a move. And that's what he did. Because guess what? If the Padres don't make the playoffs, Dylan Lesko's hole in the organization is not going to be his problem. So that's how it reads to me.
Not convinced of that.
I mean, I don't know if he's up at the end of the year. I do think this deal helps somebody argue that point. I see what you're saying. To be sure. You can't also let this team die.
Like, I've seen relievers have impacts on this game in Colorado and back home when 5 runs have been given up and a lead vanished. And I hear what you're saying, Raphie. I understand the sabermetrics of it. I understand over the long course of seasons, the cold hand comes for everybody. But in this team, they needed somebody. Like, that's inarguable.
Well,
and I know
it is
argument...
inarguable. I agree. It's inarguable. What we can't do, unfortunately, because we are completely without the information, is know the opportunity cost.
Yeah.
We don't know what it would have cost to get a 1 year, 2-month rental reliever that's 90% as good as Jason Adam. And whether that it certainly wouldn't have cost Dylan Lesko.
For that, look to see what Dylan Floro goes for. He's going to be in the Nationals, and he's another guy on an expiring deal around the same age. I think Floro's 33, Adams 32. He'll be a free agent when he's 35. I see all that, guys. I totally do. Like, I say those words out loud, and it feels scary, right? And the Rays are the Rays. Like, they didn't fix Luis Patino, but they fixed a lot of guys, and they've made a lot of pitchers look really, really good before chewing them up and spitting them out. So I'm happy the team's better.
Normally you lose deadline deals.
Yeah.
It's the design of it. John and Raphie, back when they did Pods Above Replacement, did a whole show about it. Like, deadline deals are deals designed for you to lose because you're trying to get instant today value. And so you're going to give up future value to get instant today value. Where I disagree with this trade is simply that philosophically, and this is where Raphie and I completely agree with one another, like, doing this and putting prospect chips to get a relief pitcher that's not a closer, that's not an elite of the elite, that still is walking over 3 guys per 9 innings, that's he's just good. He's good. He's definitely good. Is he better than what we have? Yes. If he comes in instead of Steven Kolick, am I happy? Of course. Or Wandy Peralta? Of course. But he's also gonna be another, $4.5 million, $5 million thing on this team next year. And earlier this week, when we did a debts and obligations segment on Annie and Elsten, and I went through every single fucking thing that gets more expensive in 2025, like, we got no room next year unless we're flying over the cap. And listen, playoff appearance, team flies over the cap. I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Spend that money, Erics. Spend the cash. We're giving you the cash. Spend the cash. But if they're not going to do that, I mean, we are in such a tight corner for 2025. We basically have to run this team back. And Profar and Kim are not assigned to this team. So there's there's things that are going to have to be done, and we're using up all of that on arbitration money for Dylan Cease, Luis Arise, Michael King, and now Jason Adam and Adrian Morahone next year. Like, all of those guys are going to become expensive things and no longer cost-controlled, affordable things on this team.
Higashioka.
Kyle's a free agent. He gone. So, right, we need a catcher, et cetera, et cetera. All right. How crazy do you think this is going to get between here and Tuesday? Does just like straight up, do either of you think that Salas and or DeVries is traded between here?
No.
For anything between here and Tuesday?
I don't think the team needs that. And I don't see it, like, unless it comes from out of nowhere, like somebody who we didn't even think was going to get traded. Like, and like Skubal is kind of in this range for me. Like, I don't think
we can't
Skubal's
afford
getting traded.
We can't afford him. We've already blown it.
Well, DeVries
and Salas?
No, I think just DeVries or just Salas gets the conversation started, especially
we got nothing behind it. We got nothing behind it.
Like,
Eggy,
they could do something
and
crazy,
Snelling.
like said Matt Cauldron along with it, because he's a starter with lots of control. Detroit would love that cheapness, and you're upgrading Waldron with Skubal. I'm just saying, like, that's how crazy it could get, man. That's AJ Preller 100% throttle down, and I don't think it's going to get that. I think Salas and DeVries stay.
I would be really shocked if Ethan Salas and Leo DeVries get traded. I'm not willing to say it won't happen. I'm also not willing to say it will happen, which there are people on our Discord who are like, it's happening. Like, it's just going to, because this trade happened, that therefore they're gone. I don't think that that's the case. AJ Preller has already traded some really good prospects in his career, including Trey Turner. And who knows what will come of the people he gave up in the Juan Soto trade. None of those guys were as heralded as Ethan Salas has been heralded. Like, true. I mean, like, can you guys think of anyone that has been in our system that's been talked about the way Ethan Salas has been? He's been given Buster Posey comps, and Buster Posey's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I don't know that there is one that exists. And Leo DeVries was like the only one who was in the Ethan Salas conversation when he was picked up on the team. So you would be forever altering the course of the franchise by trading Ethan Salas, and maybe not to the same degree that Leo DeVries, but I mean, it's up there, and we're seeing what's possible right now when he's on a heater. He's on an absolute heater right now in Lake Elsinore. So I'm much more interested in the floor raising trade, i.e., going and getting Cal Quantrill or someone along those lines who, the Rockies aren't going to want to pay his salary. He would slot in right at the back of our rotation. Isn't going to cost a ton. That's way more interesting to me than making a splashy trade, because, again, just in the way that relievers are volatile, starters can their elbows explode. That's what pitchers do. And giving up a cornerstone position player prospect for a guy who might explode is not the business I want to be in. And I hope AJ feels the same way.
Here we go. I hate Dylan Preller, but I love seeing the Padres get better. So to be honest, between here and Tuesday at 3, I'm going to just be a little bit scared. Just a little bit nervous, a little bit worried. I think he loses sight at this time of the forest. I think he gets locked in on a couple trees, and I think he loses sight of the forest pretty regularly. I think if you had shown this trade to him back on March 13th when he was making a Dylan Cease trade, I don't think he would have made it. I think he makes this trade because he knows this bullpen has a couple weeks left in it, tops, in its current state. I mean, look, the beginning of this road trip, I was in morose mode again and wrote down all the things in our Discord that I was worried about the team.
Well, what you wrote was, this is where I usually am right before they win 5 games in a row.
I said 4, but yes.
Yeah.
And then they won 7.
They won 7.
So I mean, you know, at some point, all the nervous Nellying about the team becomes a little bit more difficult, because I saw this as potentially a spot where the season could implode on a long road trip like this, the Comic-Con road trip. Instead, they went 7-2. You know, now they lost the last game. Don't come home and lose back-to-back to LA. Now you're on a 3-game losing streak again. But this club has a chance to do all the things that last year's club was supposed to do. And that's exciting. And it feels like a redemption for the fans. And I would not want in the management seat to spoil that by letting the team fritter away and die. I really do think if you were dashboarding this team, you would say Suarez has a potential downside. We might be at the end of his innings. Morhone is probably past his innings, and Estrada is probably past his innings for the year. So we're going to keep rolling them out there, but how much longer did they have to be effective, to keep their sharpness? This team had to go get a reliever. Did they have to go get a reliever that was also locked in for 2025 and 2026? No, they could have gotten a rental. Do I think that part of this calculus is AJ thinking like so far ahead, going, well, Robert Suarez is racking up a ton of value. He could opt out at the end of 2025 and we won't be able to afford him, but then we'll have Adam, you know, at $6 million or something, and he can be our closer in 2026. I don't know. Maybe he thought along those lines. But this was a needed player for this team. It came at a really, really high cost, and I hope not one that we're going to look back on and truly regret down the line. Maybe not. Maybe Lesko fucking sucks. Maybe he was all helium. Maybe he was all about his promise before his first TJ, and maybe it just never comes back, and he's one of the many dozens to hundreds to thousands of potentially great pitchers that never wind up being anything in big league baseball. Who knows? I just thought tactically this was a classic Preller kind of backslide into chase the prettiest thing that has the most control at the lowest cost and pay as much as you possibly have to get that thing.
Yeah. And when you're a Padres fan who has River Ryan, Manuel Clase, Max Fried in your recent memory, it becomes scary these weeks.
Yeah, I mean, weren't there like 14 former Padres, current or former Padres that were at the All-Star game?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I mean, come on. Like, on the one hand,
hey,
it's really indicative that AJ knows how to pick them. Like,
yeah,
he does. And I think that you want that guy in your organization in some way, shape, or form. It's just crazy that every year it feels like we get to this time of year and AJ, who I think, again, this has been his best year as general manager, then just steps on the rake again and like can't not do the thing where he gives up a huge price tag for controllable, whatever value that brings to you, talent. So I don't know. Like Craig said, the shelf life on this podcast is going to be basically nothing. So I think when we talk to you guys after the deadline, we'll have a much clearer picture on all of this. But hey, it was really fun to talk about it with you guys.
And hey, the deadline, you know, it's important that it is the deadline for trading in Major League Baseball. Arguably more important is that it's the deadline to get your hands on a discount Matt Waldron shirt and get in on our annual membership drive before it ends at the exact same time Major League Baseball's does.
Patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub. Go check it out. Get a free Waldron Cauldron t-shirt by becoming an annual member at the bigger, huge level. Patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub. Join in a level for that. We'll still say thank you so very much. We appreciate everybody who supports Padres Hot Tub. We'll be back either with a gigantic trade emergency show or we'll be back Wednesday after the deadline's done and wrap up everything and see where we sit in a newly sorted NL.
Should we look at who the Dodgers sending up against us, boys?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know. Dodgers don't exist as far as I'm concerned, except for the minimum time on Tuesday and Wednesday when they will be
That's
technically in San Diego. I mean, who are they? They're pitching Glass now and Kershaw against us, against Waldron.
Oh, we got those scrubs. We got those scrubs.
Yeah, screw them. They can't take a joke anyway. Screw them.
Exactly.
The very last thing I'll say is that I have no idea what the prospect cost would be to pick up Blake Snell. And if it was either one of the top two guys, I would scream bloody murder. But I just want everyone to know the mechanics of Blake Snell's contract before we go. Blake Snell got $32 million this year. 17 was a signing bonus that cannot be transferred from the San Francisco Giants. His actual salary this year is $15 million, of which 10 has been paid to him already. Blake Snell only costs about $5 million actual salary this year. Oh, what if he opts in? If he opts in, it's 1 year, $15 million in 2025, $15 million more in 2027. It's split over 3 years. So he costs about $5 million this year, and he costs $15 next year. Financially, only financially. Financially, they could do it. They could do it. They could bring our beloved Snell home. I will go as long as it's not. They can trade Snelling in that.
Yeah, Snelling and Eggy make the deal happen.
As long as it's not one of the top two, nothing would make me more excited.
Bring our dog back.
Nothing would make me more excited.
Love Blake Snell. I think from a vibe standpoint, it would be fantastic. The one thing I want to say is we just had to witness River Ryan win a game for the Dodgers. And whoever you're trading for Blake Snell is going to be in the NL West for the next 6 years. So think long and hard about who you want in a Giants uniform so that on the San Francisco Giants McCovey Cove Plunge podcast, they're going to be talking all about how good Robbie Snelling and Eggy Rosario are for the next half decade. So just think about that. I'm not for or against it. Just think about it.
Blake Snell popping out of the stage at Gallagher Square, Gangnam Style. I'm back.
But by the way, before we go, I want us to make like a spreadsheet or something of the name of all of the other teams' hot tub adjacent podcast names that we've come up with. If someone has the running tally, I need to know, because I know Cincinnati, it was like Skyline Chili Bowl podcast, so there's a bunch out there. Anyway.
All right, for Chris and Raphie, I'm Craig. Bring home Blake Snell. All right, we'll see you in the next one.